Hi guys, welcome to 6th episode of the first series of our development series. In this episode we are going to do some refactoring and also start implementing figures movements. So let's get started. So that's our code. As you may see, it becomes longer and longer, and still it has very limited amount of functionality. We actually just only display board and allow some not very, let's say, strict movements, right? Because we do not validate if figure can move like this or not. We just do some regular expression check if movement might be correct. So let's go back for a second to our notes, and that's what we described at the very beginning. Here we have our figures, and here our allowed movements. And here we also mentioned that we would like to split our application to at least two separate parts, an engine and user interface. So let's go back to our code. And here we can clearly say that, let's say, print board is like a user interface. Perform action also more belongs to flow control. Yeah, so it is also, it's waiting for user input. But there are parts like move details, validating range movement that clearly belongs to the engine. Engine should manage it. So let's create a class folder. Yeah, so here will be our class, and we can grab everything that belongs to engine and move to our new class. Of course, now our Visual Studio Code shows us that we call undefined functions, but we will fix it soon. Board, in my opinion, it also belongs to engine, so let's move it here. And let's do some code fixes. Here we have board, and I think that we should keep this board internally, so maybe we do this way. Also protected, but game board equals to empty board for now. And in this game board we will store current state of our board, and this board will be our blueprint. So to make it works, okay, I think it looks better. So let's go to our index.php and see what we broke here. Because I'm not going to use any autoloaders, we need to include files manually. So let's include it. Here we have move details, print board. So let's create a new object here. It's a new chess engine. We can do it this way or this way, doesn't really matter. And let's go step by step. Here we have a board, but we do not define board in our class, and also we make it protected. So we need some access method. And we can go back here. Now we call game and game board. Okay, let's scroll down. Here we call perform action. It expects board, but here we have one more print of our board. So let's copy and paste. And here instead of passing board, we can pass our game. So here it will not be a reference anymore, it will be chess engine game. And few things here. Move details will move to our game. We don't need to pass board anymore. Same here and same here. Both are green, so it seems that everything is fine. So let's check if that still works. Board was printed correctly. Let's try to move A2 to A3. That part works. A9 to B9 is invalid. That works as well. And exit. So it seems that everything is still correct. What we can do next is to implement our moves in our engine. And we can define our moves also as a protected array. And it will be a two-dimensional array. Every figure will have corresponding moves. And the pawn as the last one. It also has two moves. It's kind of special because the main figures, they can move and beat in the same way, but pawn can move in a one way and attack in a other way. But that's why it is kind of special. So let's use I as movement, yeah, because it can move just in a one direction. But V because it can attack in a V shape. Okay, having this done, we can define one more validation function, which will be public. Public also can be static. Axis. It will return Boolean. And what we want to pass to this function. For sure, we want to pass our move details, but now our move details are an array. And what is not good with this array, what is not very convenient, let's go to here. For example, we have move details, but if I will go like this, there is no help from the user, from the IDE to help us what we have access to. So that's why, in this case, we are going to create a new data class object, which will be chess move. And this chess move will have same properties as our array. All the properties are public because there will be no extra constraints about this, and we would like to add some, maybe we will add some helpers to this object, but it is, in general, it is a data class. So just make we will create a constructor to make this initialization a little bit easier. Because we are using PHP 7, we have to list every single property here. Yeah, something like this. In a PHP 8, it will be easier because PHP 8 has pretty cool feature. We wouldn't need anything like this. Let's call it number 2. Nothing like this. Just add yeah, that construction will do the same as here, but because we are in a PHP 7.4, it is not available for us yet. Okay, and let's go back to our engine. And now, instead of returning array, we would like to return chess move right now. Let's remove this for a second. And now if you go to index, we have this move details. And because we return something that we need to include as well, chess move. Here we have our move. So we have move details, and you can see that Visual Studio Code immediately shows us that it will return chess move. And so we can access figure, and here it helps us with what we have access to. Same details from column. Yeah, so it helps us with editing. And now having this, we can also pass it as a one parameter to our movement function. Now it is of course a wrong type, so let's go here, movement, and here we can chess move and move, right? That simple change from array to data class object gives us more control on the data we receive in functions, and also reduces amount of parameters that we pass to our function. So in many cases, this approach is very welcome. And now we can go back to our valid axis. Let's say if we return a boolean and return true for now. Let's go back to our console and let me show you something. So here we are in our console, and let's try to move A2 to A3. That one was correct. But what will happen if I will try to A9 to B9? Here we have a fatal error. And that's because we defined that our move details will return chess move object, but we returned array, yeah, in chess engine line 53. So let's go back here, and that's what we have here. We returned array, even though we defined as a return type chess move. So in this case, we want to make it optional, and we don't want to return array anymore. We can return null. And now let's go back to our console. PHP A2, A3 is correct, A9, B9 is invalid move without fatal errors. Exit still works. Time to implement some moves. That will be probably one of the biggest and the most tricky parts of our engine. So let's start with some variable that will hold if the whole movement is correct or not, and return its value. To be able to proceed, we need some data like this. And we also need to know what kind of moves are allowed for a particular figure. So we have our list of moves, and now we need to take list of available moves for our figure that we are going to move. And having this moves list fetched, we also need to know if this is the player 1, because one player can go up and the other one can go down. So we need to determine direction of our move, because, for example, pawn can move only forward, so the direction is very, very important. And how we can figure out this? Yeah, so if it's a small letter, then we go in the one way, and if it's a opposite, so we know that it is only a capital letter, we go in the opposite direction. And because moves are, it is an array, 1 or 2 elements, but still. And because we use move here as a parameter, so let's add this as a local. And here we have characters, the same as here. But because we will not use this in any other place, I think we don't have to move this as we did for chess move to separate class. I think that simple character comparison will be good enough. So maybe let's start from the pawn. Those two moves belong to pawn figure. Okay, and that move will be valid only, so valid is equal to valid, or, and here we need to specify our conditions. It will be valid only if move from column is equal to move to column, right? And there will be two possible options, because the pawn can move 1, or if it's the very first move, can move 2 steps forward. So move from row this time is equal to move to row plus 1, and this we need to multiply by our direction, or is equal to move 2 plus 2. Yeah, because if the difference is 2 in both directions, then then this move is also correct. In a V move, it is a little bit easier. It's also valid equal to valid, or and what we need to check, if move is only by 1 row forward or backward, I mean forward, but in the 2 directions. And it has to be in a one side, to the right or to the left. It cannot be straight. For straight, we have I option. Actually, we don't need this. That will be just one condition. And this condition is absolute value from move from column minus move to column, and that operation needs to be equal to 1. And so that will be very first validation of our moves. Let's go to console and see if that works. And let's say A2 to A3, it's valid. Let's say B2 to B4, also valid. C2 to C5. Yeah, and that was obviously correct, because even though we implemented this, we never used this. So here it is a good place to check it. here we know that coordinates are correct, but we don't know if the movement is correct. So okay, so now we have not only implemented in our engine, but also we do validation. So let's go back to console and see if now that will work. But before we check, let's go, let's do one more thing. Here's one issue, because we defined moves using the capital small letters, but here we expect small and capital letters. So this one we need to lower for this purpose. We cannot override this because here we do comparison, but for move purposes we have to use a lowercase. A2 to A3, that works. B2 to B4 should work as well, yeah. C2 to C5 should be invalid. And we have our message that it is wrong move. The figure stays in the place where it was, so it is okay. Let's check if the D2 to C3 works. Yep, we can go also in this direction. So it seems that our basic validation for the pawns works. In the next episodes we will implement this for the other figures, but that's all for this episode. Thanks for watching and see you next time.